Guys, there are five things I've always maintained way back from the days when I used to have my nationwide sports talk show on gambling. Number one, well, you know what this one is. Always buy that half point when the line crosses three, four, six, or seven. Number two, well, this is an important one, probably the most important one. Never bet more than you can afford to lose because then you'll never get yourself in that deep financial abyss from which there is no escape. Number three, how many times have I told you this? Never celebrate the wins, nor do you lament the losses, because that way you always remain focused and on that even keel, which you need not only as a handicapper and a gambler, but that's the key to success in gambling in a nutshell. Number four, scared money never makes you money. I told you that last Saturday when I came out with a play that matched the biggest ever in my career, no matter the sport, an ultra rare 30 dime release. Number 36 in 23 years in college football. And I delivered an easy winner with the Texas Longhorns minus 21 and a half points, beating Florida by 32 in a game that wasn't even nearly as close as the final score indicated. And number five is going to be this. Always press the action when you're on the roll because you never walk away from the table when you're hot. And guys, I'm doing it again today with another ultra rare 30 dime release in college football, now number 37 in 23 years. And just like Texas last week, it's going to be the half price play of the day. It's my 4 touchdown revenge romp. It goes on the daytime card. And why am I coming out with it? Because on Thursday night, I improved to 18-10 over the past couple of years with the raise the bar 20 dime releases with the Eagles. Last night, I hit again with my normal top rated 15 dime play in the NBA, now on a 42-23 roll with the Rockets -5, crushing the LA Clippers. It's time to press the action, and I'm doing it. And you get it as the half price play of the day using coupon code HALF, HALF. And keep in mind, I'm going for Saturday best bet winner number 9 out of 11 over at DeMarcoSports.com. It's been a hell of a college football season, guys. Here on the video report, my best of the worst, as I always like to say, the top play among the best of the worst. Well, here I'm going for winner number 9 out of 12. So without further ado, let's get to it. And let's talk about that top play today. And by the way, later in this report, I'm going to briefly touch on that farce that was the fight that most of you probably watched last night. And I really use the word loosely, fight between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. Okay, your top complimentary play today, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start the drum roll, please. I'm going to go with Western Kentucky. Yeah, surprising you, huh? Out of Actually, no. Let me switch sides here. I am actually going to go with Kansas State. Kansas State minus the points at home against Arizona State. I know Kansas State is coming off that loss against Houston 2 weeks ago, a game which they were up 19-10 going into the fourth quarter. But listen, what you may not be aware of, that game was played in a driving rain, and Kansas State pretty much abandoned their run game. I don't know why. And that allowed Houston to come back and win that game 24-19 with all those 13 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. But Kansas State has been a team that has struggled somewhat on the road this year. Remember the horrible 5-minute stretch at BYU. They barely escaped with a road win at Tulane. Also had to hold on for dear life at Colorado. But I also think a factor in that Houston loss was the week prior, they were coming off a 29-27 win in the Sunflower Showdown at home against their biggest rival, which was Kansas. So now they are back in Manhattan. And keep in mind, in Manhattan, they are on a 13-3 straight up and ATS run in Big 12 play dating back the past couple of years. And they're a 7.5 point favorite today against Arizona State. So I'm going to buy down the half point here. Now, Arizona State's coming off a 35-31 win against Central Florida at home. And Central Florida, if you look at the box score, dominated in that game statistically, but they didn't get the job done. Arizona State and Kansas State are both 7-win teams. But I can't say that I'm impressed with how the Sun Devils have done this season because who have they beaten? Wyoming, Mississippi State, Texas State, Kansas, Utah, Oklahoma State, and Central Florida. Combined, those teams are 23 and 43 straight up this season, and they're 1-2 in road games. Um, Kansas State is going to be the best team that Arizona State has played all season long. So I think Kansas State, a team, as I told you, abandoned their run game at Houston 2 weeks ago. They're going to get running here today. And this is a team that averages 208 yards per game on the ground and 5.8 yards per carry. And I don't think Arizona State, even though Arizona State's big running back is going to be back in action today, I don't think Arizona State's going to be able to compete. And I think Kansas State's going to win this game by 2 touchdowns here. So Kansas State is going to be your top play here on the video report today. FYI, if you have not taken advantage of the 2-day free trial over at DeMarcoSports.com, you can do so, which means if you've never been a customer, if you've never taken advantage of the 2-day free trial, you can get my biggest play of my career again for free today, plus all the plays of all the handicappers. Regular price is $109 for the all access pass. Plus, you can pick another day, your choice, for free. 2-day free trial. You pick the days for free if you've never been a customer before. I can't sell free any better than saying the 4-letter word that I'm allowed to say here on YouTube. Free. If you have any questions, you can always contact customer service. So, moving right along. And I hope this video is syncing up with my audio because I have my doubts as I'm recording this. Let's get to your second complimentary play. That is going to be Western Kentucky. Yes, Western Kentucky, -12 at home against Louisiana Tech. Western Kentucky in the driver's seat in Conference USA, 7-2 and 5-0. They've won 4 straight since a loss at Boston College, where they were up 20-7 at halftime and ended up losing that game 21-20. If you saw the Louisiana Tech game last week at home against Jackson State, they lost that game 44-37 in overtime. They've lost 3 of their last 4. They're 0-4 on the road this year. They've lost 16 of their last 17 on the road. That was a heartbreaking loss against Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State tied the game in regulation with a Hail Mary pass, a 49-yard pass, where the receiver just was wide open in the end zone, slipped the coverage, and just, hey, throw me the ball. Then Jacksonville State misses the go-ahead point after try, but then they win it in overtime anyway, right? And this is a game Louisiana Tech was up by 9 points with about 10.5 minutes to play. How do you rebound from that type of loss? I just don't think so. So I'm going to go with Western Kentucky in this game, -12 points. Damn good passing attack. And number 1 in Conference USA, averaging 280 yards a game. Number 3 in total offense, almost 410 yards a game. And number 1 in scoring, 30 points a game. Listen, there are only 2 losses this year. Season opener at Alabama, to be expected, and that narrow loss at Boston College. And again, Louisiana Tech can't win on the road. So I'm going to go with Western Kentucky. Your final play is going to be a 2-team teaser. And I'm going to go with South Carolina at home, minus the points against Missouri. Currently, South Carolina is a 13.5-point favorite. And I'm going to hook them up with their SEC brethren, Georgia, at home against Tennessee. Georgia is a 9.5-point favorite against the Volunteers. So in a 7-point 2-team teaser, I'm going to take South Carolina down to 6.5 against Missouri. And then I'm going to make Georgia a 2.5-point favorite against Tennessee. Now, let's talk about South Carolina. This is a team that's won 3 straight since that 2-point loss against Alabama. They've got the number 12 scoring defense in the country, number 3 in sacks, in fact, averaging nearly 4 a game. And they're starting 4 along the defensive line, 108 total pressures on the year. They're coming off that 27-7 win at Vandy. I like the fact that Raheem Sanders, Rocket Sanders, the Arkansas transfer, has really gotten the ground game going, 126 and 144 yards the past 2 games. And the redshirt freshman quarterback, Lenoris Sellers, who's a real dual threat, has played much better the last 2 games as well. Remember in the upset of Texas A&M, 244 yards passing, 104 yards rushing, and then he had 238 yards passing against Vanderbilt. He had 2 touchdowns passing in each one of those games. Brady Cook, last I read, was doubtful for Mizzou. I'm edging my bets by using South Carolina in a teaser. Now, you know what's happened to Georgia here lately, but Georgia 1-7 against the spread this season. But again, I'm manipulating the odds in the teaser. And the fact is that You've got the Dogs have covered 5 straight in the series. They've won 7 straight against Tennessee. And the Vols will have their starting quarterback today. Um, but which Georgia team shows up? Is today the day we're going to get the Georgia team that pummeled Texas in Austin? Maybe. But the fact is, I just need Georgia to win by like a field goal in this teaser, and I win. And keep in mind, Carson Beck has struggled this year, but Carson Beck, between the hedges, is a totally different quarterback. As a starter at home, 24 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. As a starter on the road, 17 TDs, 13 interceptions. And Georgia has won 28 straight games in Athens. So, again, in the teaser adjusted price, I have Georgia 2.5, along with South Carolina. So, again, let's recap the plays. I'm going to go with number 1 is going to be Kansas State. Number 2 is going to be your play on Western Kentucky. And number 3 is going to be the 2-team 7-point teaser, and that is going to be on South Carolina and Georgia. I wanted to make a couple quick comments regarding the fight, if you want to call it that, last night between Tyson and Paul. It really surprised me how many people really thought that Mike Tyson had a chance. As a guy who covered just about all the major boxing matches, fights in mid to late 80s, when I was a reporter and managing editor of a national sports wire service, I probably covered probably at least a dozen of Mike Tyson's fights. You know, this is a guy who fought 15 times when he was 19 years old. He fought 13 times when he was 20 years old. He suffered his first loss when he was 24. Then he went to prison, right? He was washed up when he was 29. Washed up. So why did anybody think that 29 years later he would have anything left? Even when he was going against the tomato can and Jake Paul. I mean, if you saw those short clips of him in the gym when he's working on the heavy bag, he couldn't put together combinations. I mean, 1-2, 1-2. Yeah, nothing. There was nothing there. There was no speed. There was no multiple combinations. What did anybody really expect from Mike Tyson? He's a 58-year-old man, for Christ's sake. That's like asking me to go in the ring and put together multiple combinations. The fact that it was 2-minute rings, the fact that they were using 14-ounce gloves rather than 10-ounce gloves, inconsequential. Plus, he had a 6-inch reach disadvantage. In his youth, before he was washed up, Mike Tyson would have traded 5 punches, absorbed them all to get one good shot. Not at 58, he wasn't. And in the latter stages of his career, he was not Iron Mike anymore. He was not that guy willing to trade, to take punishment, to give punishment anymore. That was an illusion. Everybody talks about how great he was. He was great up until the point he beat Michael Spinks. And then the minute he lost that first time, it was over. And as far as Jake Paul, I mean, the future of boxing, are you effing kidding me? Jake Paul's nothing. I mean, last night was his 12th professional fight, a guy that took up boxing when he was 19 or 20. I mean, he looked like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man that bulked up on protein bars. I mean, nice jab, but no power behind that jab. Always kept his hands low. You keep those hands low. If you were in with a real guy, a real boxer, somebody's going to throw the overhand right and then come through and hit you with that left hook, either in your kidneys, which is going to put you down, or hit you right in the jaw, and boom, it is over. He's fought nobodies, absolutely nobodies. Let me put this in perspective for you, okay? Let's go back to the greatest fighters in the 70s and 80s, okay? Even some in the 90s. Frazier, Ali, Foreman in his 40s would have killed him, okay? Lennox Lewis, he wouldn't even come close to Lennox Lewis. Larry Holmes, with probably the greatest jab in boxing history, he would have just pulverized that ugly face with that crummy little beard and goatee that he has. Would have just destroyed him. Ernie Shavers, the Acorn, probably 1 or 2 punches and Jake Paul would be on the floor. Randall Tex Cobb, a guy that I got to know quite well when I was in college. He used to come on my radio show all the time. Tex Cobb would have waited in there, taken 4, 5, 6 shots in a row, and eventually would have worn him out and just beaten him to a pulp. As for Netflix, I'm watching it on my Verizon cell phone carrier. There I was able to get a signal. My 1 gig home internet on a local different provider, Like everybody else, it was just, froze. It was a joke. And they're going to have two NFL games on Christmas Day. Yeah. Okay, you got 5.5 weeks to solve all your streaming issues. Paul bragging after the fight that, we broke Netflix. Yeah, you broke Netflix, buddy. You brought 72,000 people to Arlington, to AT&T Stadium. I think people go to NASCAR. Half the people to see racing, half the people to see crashes. That's kind of like the people that showed up there last night. Half the people wanted to see if Paul could get knocked out. The other half wanted to see if Tyson would die in the ring. Paul's not going to attract a big crowd unless he fights somebody real next time. It was just curiosity about Tyson. The Netflix announcers, Rosie Perez, are you kidding me? Seriously, Roy Jones? Roy Jones has been comatose for years, but nobody's figured it out yet. And the combat sports broadcaster, what is his name? Mauro Ranallo, I think is his name. He's from Canada. How many how many guys did he name drop? I mean, Tupac. I don't think did he name drop Drake? I mean, every guy in the pop and rap world, he was constantly name dropping. And as an announcer, he sucked. But, for the Jake Paul YouTube fans, I guess that turned them on. And one final thing, the undercard, two things. The undercard, the women's fight between Serrano and Taylor, Serrano was robbed, robbed. I mean, the scoring was atrocious. You deduct a point for Taylor because of her constant headbutts, and she still wins the fight on a decision. I don't know. I mean, I had Serrano ahead by at least 2 rounds, and I wasn't even really paying attention to the fight scoring wise. I was just watching her absolutely dominate the fight. But then again, you look at the unofficial scorecard that they were flashing up during the Tyson Paul fight. What blind man gave Tyson the first round? I mean, he didn't win any rounds. He didn't throw any punches. How could you win any rounds? I mean, the Texas judges were a joke. But then again, the fight was in Texas. Oh, I could get in so much trouble here. We could start with the governor. We could start with the attorney general. We could start with everything in Texas. But then Texas, if I ever went to the state, would never hire me as tourism director. Anyway, I'm done now. I feel better. I wish you well, guys, and we'll talk to you again soon.